right. Thank you guys so much. So we are here for a very important reason. Let me take a moment to address the dismissal and pending dismissal of the cases against my staff. I want to draw a contrast, or lack thereof, between November 16th, 2021 and today, February 6th, 2025. On November 16th, 2021, there were 3 dedicated young public servants working day and night on doing everything possible to protect people from the COVID pandemic. One day, we began receiving subpoena after subpoena. Dozens of innocent public servants in Harris County were harassed as a result. But Kim Mogg focused on 3 innocent people, Alex, Wallace, and Aaron. Alex, Wallace, and Aaron saw their lives and reputations destroyed. They had their mugshots plastered all over TV, including during the World Series. The false allegations were used for political gain. Their mugshots were used to fundraise, and false accusations against them were profiled on multiple political campaigns. These innocent public servants had the Texas Rangers raid their homes before dawn with police lights on, with their children and families home, including a pregnant wife and a 5-year-old girl watching. I and my team provided very clear evidence that what was being alleged was entirely false and merely a political prosecution. Kim Mogg wasted millions of taxpayer dollars and the time of prosecutors, judges, and our entire justice system. Over 3 years have gone by. All these years and millions of dollars wasted later, we're still at the point we were on the morning of November 16th, 2021, before all this happened. Today, Alex, Wallace, and Aaron remain 3 dedicated public servants who are innocent. After years of breathless media coverage over a contract awarded to save lives during the COVID-19 pandemic, all of you can now see for yourselves what I've been saying all along, that they're innocent and that this is a political prosecution. Let's be clear about what happened here. Former District Attorney Kim Mogg hired her friend Rachel Hooper, and that's where I want you guys to turn to this document. It is a copy of invoices, and you'll see here this is just one invoice, so there have been many, many dozens of these. And as you can see, there are hours billed at the cost of around $20,000 for just this one invoice, all of them to pay one Rachel Hooper in relation to this political prosecution, including over an hour spent drafting questions for Commissioner Cable. Rachel Hooper, at the time, was the top lawyer for the Texas Republican Party. She was hired on a no-bid, 6-figure contract to invent a criminal case alongside Kim Mogg against her political opponents. Here are the facts. Ms. Rachel Hooper, the Texas GOP's top lawyer, led the investigation. Rachel Hooper, again at the time, was the top lawyer for the Texas Republican Party. She billed the county 6 figures. Rachel Hooper, the GOP's top lawyer, and her team oversaw deliberate, selective leaks to the press, mischaracterizing the truth along weeks and months. Senator Betancourt, a Republican leader, was the very first person to announce the indictments of these innocent public servants. He announced the indictments before even the defendants knew about the indictments, before any paperwork was even filed with the district clerk. Kim Mogg is a dirty cop. She and Rachel Hooper, the GOP's top lawyer, lied on search warrants, deliberately leaked information out of context to the press, pursued a personal political vendetta disguised as a prosecution, and wasted millions of taxpayer dollars just because they could. And this is just the end of a long line of Kim Mogg cases that wasted millions and millions of county dollars, thousands and thousands of hours, against political opponents and ended with nothing. From the investigations into the elections, to attacks on Commissioner Ellis, to attacks on Dr. Hassan Gokul. And of course, Rachel Hooper, the GOP's top lawyer, and Kim Ogg misled the press and misled you, the public, at every turn. There were no convictions here, there was no crime here, but somebody did lose, and it was the people of Harris County. They've been forced to pay for this outrageous debacle, and it has cast a shadow over the amazing, dedicated people who've given up lucrative careers in the private sector to serve our community instead. In the end, I'm grateful that prosecutors with integrity from the Texas Attorney General's office were finally able to take a sober, clear look at this case. They deserve our praise and recognition. Let me close by saying this. When I stood in this building 3 years ago, after these indictments, I said that I did agree with Kim Ogg on one thing, that justice would be done. I was right then, and I'm right today, because that is exactly what has occurred. I'll repeat briefly in Spanish, and then I'll take questions. Quiero tomar un momento para hablar acerca de los casos ya desestimados en contra de mis empleados. El 16 de noviembre de 2021, habían 3 empleados jóvenes dedicados, trabajando día y noche para proteger a la comunidad contra el COVID-19. Un día empezamos a recibir apercibimiento y peticiones para que se enviara información a la oficina de la Fiscalía. Servidores públicos vieron preocupados, tuvieron que contratar abogados, pero Kim Ogg, la fiscal en ese momento, se enfocó en 3 personas inocentes, Alex, Wallace y Aaron. Alex, Wallace y Aaron vivieron 3 años en los cuales sus vidas y sus reputaciones fueron destruidas. Tuvieron sus fotos policiales en todos los canales, incluyendo durante la Serie Mundial de los Astros. Las acusaciones falsas fueron parte de campañas políticas, salieron en propagandas, inclusive utilizaron las fotos policiales. Esos trabajadores públicos vieron que la policía, los Texas Rangers, llegaban a su casa en la mitad de la noche con las luces prendidas y la familia ahí. De hecho, una madre embarazada y una niña de 5 años vieron cuando la policía con las luces fueron a ver la casa, el hogar de estos jóvenes completamente inocentes. Tanto yo como mi equipo desde el principio he ofrecido evidencia que demuestra que las alegaciones que se estaban haciendo eran totalmente falsas. Kim Ogg gastó millones de dólares del público, de impuestos y el tiempo de fiscales, de jueces y de todo nuestro sistema judicial. Y ya han pasado más de 3 años. Ya 3 años después, habiendo gastado millones de dólares, estamos en el mismo sitio en el que estábamos la mañana del 16 de noviembre de 2021, antes de que todo esto funcionara. Hoy día, Alex, Wallace y Aaron continúan siendo 3 trabajadores dedicados que son inocentes. ¿Qué sí sucedió aquí? Kim Ogg contrató a su amiga Rachel Hooper, quien en ese momento era la abogada principal del Partido Republicano del Estado de Texas. La contrató sin ninguna competencia de selección, le pagó más de $100,000 para inventar un caso criminal en contra de sus oponentes políticos. Rachel Hooper, la abogada del Partido Republicano, fue la líder de la investigación. Esta abogada del Partido Republicano le cobró al condado más de $100,000. Esta abogada para el Partido Republicano lideró una investigación que sabía que era falsa y le ofreció a la prensa hechos fuera de contexto. De hecho, el senador Bettencourt, un líder republicano, fue la primera persona que anunció las demandas en contra de Alex Wallace y Aaron. No era eso público, ni siquiera las tres personas sabían que habían sido demandados. Kim Mogg, la abogada del Partido Republicano, gastaron millones de dólares simplemente porque podían hacerlo. Este es el final de una larga línea de casos de Kim Mogg que gastaron fondos del condado, miles y miles de horas en contra de oponentes políticos. Por ejemplo, las investigaciones en las elecciones del 2022, los ataques contra de mi colega, el comisionado Ellis, y los ataques en contra del doctor Hassan Gokal. Y esos son solo algunos ejemplos. Y bueno, obviamente Rachel Hooper y Kim Mogg le presentaron a la prensa y al público hechos falsos. Aquí no hubo ninguna nadie es culpable de estas tres personas, no hubo ningún crimen, pero alguien sí perdió y fueron los residentes del condado Harris, que han tenido que pagar con sus impuestos por todo esto que ha hecho Kim Mogg y además algo que ha lastimado las vidas de estos dedicados empleados. Finalmente, agradezco a los fiscales íntegros de la Procuraduría General de Texas que hayan podido finalmente analizar este caso de manera seria y clara. Permíteme terminar diciendo lo siguiente. 3 años después de estas acusaciones, aquí estamos. Hace 3 años dije que la cosa en la que sí está de acuerdo con Kim Mogg era que sí se haría justicia. Tenía razón entonces y tengo razón hoy. La justicia ha ocurrido. I'll take any questions.
Alex's charges will be dismissed after he does some community service. Does that still qualify as total exoneration in your opinion?
Yes, so 6 months from now, if you look up these folks' names, there will not be any arrest, any indictment, any crime. Alex was not guilty, is not admitting to any guilt. The options the prosecutors gave him were to go forward into a 3-week trial that would have cost taxpayers even more money, and of course, for his family also, more psychological burden, or to do a day of community service at the food bank. So he's doing the latter, and it just means he's going to have to wait 6 months until that history of arrest and indictment based on falsehoods is cleared from his record and shredded.
Judge, going off of that, my understanding talking to attorneys that if an agreement is made like the one that he took, you would basically take some responsibility for what happened in order for the prosecution to agree to pretrial intervention, which is what he did. Are you aware of what responsibility he took in this case?
No, he has not taken responsibility for committing any sort of crime. If you look at the document, if you look at the conversations with the judge, the most important thing for him, as I hear from his attorneys, is obviously for there not to be any kind of admission of guilt because he was not guilty. And he had the opportunity to not go through a 3-week trial in order for it to come out that he was not guilty. Instead, he has to wait 6 months, do a day of community service. He's going to do that.
Since I see there's an item to repay some legal fees, I'm assuming it's either for Wallace or Aaron today for $35,000. If Alex's attorneys, since he is doing community service and did have something different than those two, should Harris County pay for his legal fees as well?
So again, the legal fees go to folks who have been no-billed, so not indicted, or who've been indicted and found to be not guilty. In this case, it's a political prosecution led by the top attorney in the Republican Party. And if you're not convicted or if you're not indicted, you're innocent. He's absolutely innocent. But again, the funds that were spent and the person who started all of this was Kim Mogg. And she spent millions and millions of dollars. Just imagine her communications staff, the prosecutors, the administrative staff, the Texas Rangers, the folks who served all the subpoenas. all the people who had to work up and down these buildings to produce thousands and thousands of documents. She went through all of that knowing that this was false. So many sittings at court. She did all of that instead of prosecuting real public corruption, instead of prosecuting violent crime. So as far as fees and the number, again, he's not guilty. And the item is actually not for any of these folks. It is for another staff member on the same issue that, again, had to go to speak to a grand jury, had to produce documents in a political attack at a cost to the county on both ends, the work that Kim Ogg had to pay Rachel Hooper for, and the work that this individual had to pay his attorneys for because Kim Ogg started this false fight. So like him, we have already reimbursed several employees, and there's going to be more because she wasted the time and the money of so many people up and down the bureaucracy.
Judge, the AG's office said they found new evidence that was not disclosed to the grand jury at the time of the indictments. Do you know what that new evidence was?
Look, the prosecutors can decide what gets shown to the grand jury. And so, as we made very clear back then, I was very, very, very clear about how there was no way a crime was committed. Things simply did not add up. The facts were not there for the allegations she was considering. What was presented to the grand jury for them to nevertheless make an indictment, I will never know. That's secret. But I have to believe those men and women in the grand jury were misled just as the press was, just as the community was. Perhaps these folks, prosecutors with integrity at the Attorney General's office, actually presented the full and accurate facts to that grand jury. I don't know. But what is clear is that mere weeks after Kim Ogg was out of office, the cases have been dismissed. All these people are innocent. The only thing that's changed is their lives and reputations have been ruined. Look, one of these folks, there's two lawyers. One of them has a PhD in nuclear physics. Another one has an MBA, a law degree from Harvard Law School. Experience in the private sector, in finance. These are three people who could be making a whole lot of money, certainly without steering any contracts, in the private sector. But they chose to work here in Harris County during COVID to keep you guys safe. And that was the irony of all of this. We awarded a contract in a perfectly proper manner with evidence to show for. And these are folks who were just doing their job and being dedicated to the county, their entire careers in front of them. And now I'm committed, and I hope others will be committed to helping restore their reputations.
Could Alex seek reimbursement for his legal fees now, or does he have to wait 6 months when the agreement is over?
I think probably waiting 6 months because everything has to be completely over. And so for him, that'll be in 6 months, but you'd have to ask the county attorney about that. But as I said, what happens to each of those folks, because they didn't do anything. So the fact that they were falsely arrested, falsely paraded through the justice, through the JPC, made to take mug shots, falsely indicted, it's not fair for that to be on their record for a future hire, for a future whatever it is that they're doing. And so the way justice is served in this case, because all of this was false, is all of that history, all of that gets shredded. None of that should have happened. So their profiles in the justice system will be just as clear as they were before Kim Ogg decided to embark upon this political vendetta.
Looking back, do you think Elevation Strategy did what the office wanted it to do in the process of COVID?
They didn't get to do much. So remember that at the time, and that was another thing that was really, really sad about all of this, is there were certain communities that were not being vaccinated. They were just not participating. And so what we wanted to do, we'd been having, big ad campaigns, but we decided we wanted to do research on why these particular communities were not willing to accept the vaccine and what we could do to help persuade them to get vaccinated. And so that was the work that Elevate Strategies was doing. They had barely begun hiring all the experts that were going to do this research. Of course, it was a communications firm because it was a communications project, as I said from the start. So they never had a chance to go out and do the work. We were very, very busy dealing with COVID and everything else that normally goes on at the county. And so in conjunction with the public health department, we decided, and we were very sad to make this decision, as I said at the time, that it just made no sense to continue getting distracted by this. At the time, the county auditor and the county purchasing agent also said there was nothing wrong with this. And so I just want to encourage folks to look back and see how everybody was misled and what that means for the way in which we come after people who are innocent.
Do you know of any of your former staffers? And none of them work for you currently, right? Or,
No.
Do you know if they may take any sort of legal action?
I don't know. I can't answer that for them. They do, two of them still work for the county. One of them worked for the county for a bit, doing an incredible job. And they, at the time people said, why don't you fire them? Why don't you put them on leave? I knew they hadn't done anything, and I knew how smart and committed, brilliant really, these three folks are. And it's been heartbreaking to see their mugshots all over TV. I understand it's, people get some sort of kick out of seeing others' mugshots, but they didn't do anything. They're completely innocent. They were completely innocent, and we made that clear from the beginning.
Are you breathing a sigh of relief? Were you ever worried that you were going to be charged connected to all this? And have you been told by the AG's office that the investigation's over and you don't have to worry about that?
Look, I don't think I'm going to get a letter saying, Lina Hidalgo, you're never going to be indicted. I just don't see that coming out of the AG's office. I did, and I said at the time, I was concerned that she might indict me just because it all started during my election year. And so I'm imagining there was just really no way she could possibly spin anything about me, but I think if she could have, she would have. And I did at the time, I steeled myself for, the Texas Rangers showing up with warrants based on misleading information that Rachel Hooper, the Republican lawyer, wrote. It was a nightmare at the time, but we all kept going. We all kept going because we knew that what she wanted most was to stop us from doing our work for the county. So they stayed another year or so in my office, and then they continued working elsewhere. Yeah.
Judge, how do you feel now? You work in the same building as Kim Og now.
Like I said, I think she's a dirty cop. I think people need to call her out on that. I think she owes the citizens of Harris County and these three individuals and their families, she owes them an apology. And so does Ms. Rachel Hooper. They owe her an apology. They owe an apology to the prosecutors whose time they wasted by forcing them to work on this case that had absolutely no merit. I am confident that anyone who worked on this knew that there was nothing there, because the minute you looked at the evidence, just as we explained it to reporters who summarily explained, there's really nothing to see here. It was very clear from the very beginning there was nothing there. So look, she's hired by one of my colleagues. He's a Republican. Again, this was led by the top Republican lawyer. So it's his prerogative to have a dirty cop in his office.
And Judge, just a clarification, that multi-million-dollar contract, since the work was never done, what happened with the money?
The money was returned to the extent that it was possible to return it. So I think you'd have to check with the county attorney. But let me just say, if they'd already bought, the stationery that they were going to use, they'd already purchased it. Legally, I don't know that we could get back the money for that because they'd already spent the money. So it's something like that. But the vast majority of it was returned. And I will say, any amount, even the size of the contract, is going to end up being, of the amount that was paid, is going to end up being far less than what all of that work by, 3 years worth of prosecutors' work and all of these legal fees spent, a lot more than that ever cost. I mean, it really is a travesty, especially when there's actual public corruption out there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.